Live from clickorlando.com, this is News 6 at 5:30. This is a News 6 Plus takeover. Here now is Matt Austin and Ginger Gadsden with Florida's Fourth Estate.
Hi there, and welcome to Florida's Fourth Estate. Here on News 6, we have decided to devote an entire day to mental health. It is a crisis in America right now, certainly a crisis in Florida. And so Florida's Fourth Estate, we wanted to do our part. We are dedicated this episode to mental health. And a lot of it, you know, especially as a parent myself, and we all went through it as kids, being a child is just a weird time. And it's a time when we need to be really focused on what these kids are going through and trying to get them to share it with us all we can. Glad you're with us. I'm Matt Austin.
And I'm Ginger Gadsden. It really is such an important topic, and I'm happy we're tackling it. This is just the tip of the iceberg because there's so much to unpack when we talk about mental health. So we're bringing on someone who is going to help us navigate these rugged mental health waters, so to speak. And we've seen her before, but it's been a while. We talked to her at the beginning of the pandemic, so it's really good to see her again and talk to Dr. Romy Mushtaq. Thank you so much for being here. And we appreciate that you're going to talk about something that most people don't want to talk about. And we're talking about mental health, the crisis we're seeing in this country. And the part that I think is disturbing or alarming for a lot of people, it's a mental health crisis, not just for the adults, but for kids.
Ginger, yeah, thank you both so much for having me back for what's a crucial topic. I want to start by saying this, that as a neurologist or a brain doctor, mental health was always a crisis, and it got expanded in awareness, and certainly issues with children got worse during the pandemic. I don't want to deny that. But what is different today, I hear often a lot of people saying is, where did all this mental health talk come from and crisis? Did it just erupt in the last 2 years? I think that was here all along. We just have better awareness thanks to conversations like we're having today. And honestly, the influence of social media, making it a little bit more safe to talk about mental health.
Yeah, and this is the perfect place to do it. And I think you're the perfect person to do it. Coming from that medical background, you're exactly the person we wanted to talk to. So let's talk about when you're a kid, specifically, like, let's say transitioning maybe elementary, middle school, maybe early high school. What the heck is happening to your brain?
Our brains start developing from the time we're in utero, and they're developing for our entire life. There's a key development period until about the age of 7 to 8, but it really goes until the age of 25, which a lot of people don't realize that. And why is that really important for our brains? As we grow, and there's a little bit of nature, meaning our genes, and nurture is the biggest part of it, meaning what kind of social environment we're in, what kind of home life we have, our sleep-wake cycles, all of those things play a role in how our mental well-being develops and our mental health. And I really want to say those are two different things because you just alluded it to children. Mental well-being is our ability to cope and how happy we feel and joyful. Our mental health, we start looking at, is there disease? And often people confuse the two, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more when we talk about treatments. I bring the worlds of neurology and integrative medicine together. So an example is people will say, well, Dr. Romy, my child just got diagnosed with bipolar or anxiety or depression. Can't I do one of these trendy diets for kid, omitting gluten? And no. When you have disease, it's really different than your mental well-being. So I want to start with children, is that everything determines their mental well-being. But one of the, I'd say three crucial things is a child's brain needs a schedule and needs to have regularity. Otherwise, it can take a sense of psychological safety away and disrupt our biological clock or rhythm. The second thing is the environment of knowing that you're in a place that you feel cared for and safe. And you could have that at home and not at school, or vice versa, have it at school and not at home. And then, the third thing is that sense of connection.
And it's so important. Okay, so every brain is different, Dr. Romy. Can you just give parents an idea of what they should be looking for in their own child to tell if there's something that's not, I don't
Yeah.
like to use the word wrong, but something not right?
Really, what you want to notice is over time about a few key symptoms is all of a sudden, does your child stop loving the things or the people or the hobbies that they were doing, including giving up things like video games or nah, I don't want to be on TikTok anymore, right? So an
Mhm.
abrupt change of behavior. The other thing is changing what they're eating drastically should be a cause to think, is there something going on? Today's world of social media, we obviously worry about both boys and girls having issues with, eating disorders or anything, but it could be even as simple as all of a sudden they're eating a lot more than they did and hungry all the time, or they've just stopped eating. And the last one is a change in sleep and energy. If your child is normally sleeping 9, 10 hours a night and all of a sudden they're awake all night and crawling into bed with you, or the opposite, think something is wrong. It's those early indicators
Mm.
that when we're sitting as doctors, the parents go back, oh, yeah, this has been going on for months.
Yeah, how do you figure them out? Like what, because a lot of time, every day my daughters come home and go, hey, what's up, beautiful? How was your day? That was good. How was yours? I got zero
Yeah.
information. How do you dig in
Yeah.
there a little more?
That's a good thing. So, how is your day? Are you okay? Or like conversation that will stop a
Right.
conversation, right? And so, we always there. The simple thing can be the rose and the thorn of the day, but it needs a cooler name. I sound like such a Dr. Auntie Romy when I say, "What was your rose
Yeah.
and thorn during the day? What was the thumbs up emoji and the thumbs
What
down
was the puke
emoji of the
emoji?
day?"
Yeah,
Right?
that's good.
Yeah, the puke emoji moment of the day. But the key is how, if you don't know what an emoji is, ask them. Sometimes it can create a moment of laughter, right? I have that line always, I'm having an auntie moment. What does that mean? But the second thing to do is always remember, allow a child to feel their feelings. You said something so critical that as adults, we want to jump in and fix things that we love, or ask questions, or if we think something like a bullying is going on at school, we get all huff and puffed and angry. Remember, keep the own station of your brain to calm as much as possible and allow your child to feel their feelings. And they may seem out of proportion to what's going on, especially in the hormonal years, as we call them, but allow them. Because remember, if we give a safe space for a child to be angry, frustrated, have an outburst, go off, most emotions will calm down within 90 seconds to 3 minutes. And now you just gave them that safe space to feel their feelings. You don't need to deal with the feelings, just allow them to feel the feelings.
If
Yes.
you recognize that your child is struggling, where can you go to get help?
Yeah. I think the most courageous thing you can do as a parent is realize that you need outside help and you can't figure out everything on your own from YouTube. Three great resources I want to give is look at your health insurance company and see if they have benefits. Talk therapy, unfortunately, is not always easily covered by insurance, but they may have a partnership with a platform on an app on a phone that your child can talk to a child therapist. The second suggestion is ask your school counselors or the teachers. They may keep a list of therapists that are affiliated with the school district or ones that they recommend. And the third thing is please talk to your pediatrician. It is now mandated by the American College of Pediatricians that starting at age 8 to start doing annual mental health screenings for anxiety, and at 11 for depression in all children. So always go to those three resources over going to social media.
Oh, amen. Always pick something else over social media.
Yeah.
Social
Dr.
media.
Romy Mushtak, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Thank you for the
you.
critical information. Stick with us. After the break, we're going to introduce you to somebody who's been through this from the eyes of a kid in those awkward years of middle and high school. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Florida's Fourth Estate, everyone. And thank you so much for staying with us. Today we are talking about mental health, something that really gets pushed aside and dismissed a lot, but it is one of the most important things we can deal with right now and talk about and be honest about right now.
It really is. And in a lot of cases, it's not who you would expect. You sometimes you look at somebody and you think, man, they have it all together. Take celebrities, for instance, and you're like, man, this person must have just the greatest life. And one person we brought on today is someone you would expect to just have everything all together all the time.
Picture perfect.
Yeah, totally. And you can see it just by looking at her. This is Michaela Nichols.
Here's a perfect picture.
Right, yes. She is a mental health advocate, and she's the founder of Blatantly Honest. She has sort of dedicated her life now to mental health and helping kids who are struggling with bullying and mental health issues. And Michaela, first off, welcome to the show. So glad to have you.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And people, look at all of us and think like, oh yeah, everything's just easy all the time, and that's just not the case
have no problems
for any human being. So start us off, Michaela, by telling us like when struggles started for you.
I mean, I feel like struggles have always kind of been present, and I don't like really saying that, but I mean, there's days where we all have good days, we all have bad days, but really for me, I experienced a lot of bullying when I was younger. Middle school was awful for me. That's really when it kind of started, and honestly, I'd be lying if I said like I don't get bullied to this day, but I still do. It's just a matter of learning to process it and how you respond.
Yeah, and you've had to respond for a very long time because I've heard from so many parents that middle school is like such a tough year, and especially for girls. Why do you think that is such an awful time?
I mean, middle school's hard. There's so many changes that we're going through. We're kind of figuring out who we are. And I think everyone's just trying to figure out what they want, who they want to be, who their friends are. So when, you're kind of climbing that ladder of, popularity stuff, you try to push other people down because that's what people think you should do when ultimately it's not what you should do. And girls can be sometimes the worst, honestly, because I mean, Ginger, I'm sure you can relate. Like we use like emotional warfare almost
Yeah.
against other women. And sometimes we can be the worst to one another, unfortunately.
Girl, it is awful because we know all the secrets, so we know the
hmm
buttons to push, right? And so, can you give us an idea of what that looked like for you as a young woman when people are bullying you and mean to you, and you look a certain way, so no one's going to feel sorry for you, right?
Yeah, for me, I mean, people look at me and, when I go and speak in a school, Ginger, and first thing I do is like, all right, like shout the stereotypes at me. Like, what does this chick know about bullying? What does she know about feeling different or feeling weird or not pretty? I mean, no one knows. I feel like we all have a mask on all the time. And like for
Mm.
me, like I seem like this really extroverted person, but sometimes I'm like an introverted extrovert and people would never assume that. So really, I mean, for me personally, it was just trying to fit in at all times. And being a woman, it's how do you feel confident in your skin? And I mean, sometimes even now I lack confidence, but it's about, taking ownership back of your life and really just kind of channeling who you are and not letting other people influence that.
Yeah, I could tell you from raising girls, two of them have been through middle school. I tell every parent I come across who has a baby who's a girl, I'm like, look, enjoy it now because middle school things get weird. Kids are awful. They don't know who they are, and they just try to project all of their insecurities onto these other kids. And then you got to try to raise your kids not to do the same thing to these other kids. So it's a really hard, complicated time. So tell me, like, was there one bully who was really, you don't have to name them because
Dang
we're
I
you don't
want a
have to say
name.
who they are. I want
I
names and we're
want a
going to
name.
find them. Now, if you'll tell us a name, I'll take a name because I'm going to dad out here. But if not, just tell us a scenario, like, because I think people are watching this and they're like, I don't know, maybe she's being dramatic. Like, give us a scenario of what happened to you in middle school that really kind of shaped you.
Lunch for me was horrible. Like
Mm.
I vividly remember being the kid like that I would be so excited to go eat lunch because I could like talk to people and maybe make a friend. And I like remember people would literally like get up and move. One time I sat down and I started my career in modeling when I was a young kid. And so I ate like, weird food, so to speak, that models and whatever had to eat. But I remember this one kid like crumpled up her chips and like dumped it on my head. And she's like, well, since you won't eat chips, like you can wear them. And I remember just like feeling like traumatized. And
Jeez.
so it was awful. And it's like, how do you express that to your parents? Because you don't want to tell them because they'd be heartbroken, obviously. And then I would literally have lunch every day from there on with my Latin teacher. And she's still one of my best friends. Like I would eat in the teacher's classroom because I was so uncomfortable at lunch.
Oh my God. Okay, this incenses me to no end. And it's such a sad thing that has to happen to you. And knowing that it happened to you, we also know that it happens over and over again. That is played out in lunchrooms in schools all across Florida, this country,
Mhm.
actually. What gave you the courage to say, okay, and the strength to say, all right, something has to change?
You know, what a great question. There's a movie I used to watch as a kid. It was Rudolph, and there's like an island of misfit toys, and I remember being like the queen of the misfits because I would go and hang out with the kids who, maybe they were rejected or they felt a little bit different. Like I remember just looking for people who felt a little different, just like I did, and hanging out with them and being like, I don't care what these popular kids have to say about me or what I'm doing because it was it literally became like me, and not to say me against them, but I was like, I'm not going to allow them the satisfaction of, ruining my day. So I'm going to find people who appreciate me and other people who need love and acceptance just like I need right now. And I'm going to go with that
Mhm.
and choose, kindness instead of like out of spite.
Yeah, but
Where
it
did
did.
that come from? Sorry, Matt.
No, you go.
It came from, I don't know where, honestly. I think it was like an internal thing where I was just like, okay, yeah, I can be mean back, right? And sometimes you want to be mean back. Like, I'm not sitting here like being like, oh, be nice all the time. Like, there's moments, but you have to be like, okay, do I want to stoop down to their level? And that was something I could not wrap my head around. I was like, I refuse to be like them. And that's why I chose to really reach out to people who needed help. And I think that's kind of been like the pivotal moment in my entire life.
You said something a little earlier that touched me as a parent. You said, I couldn't tell my parents this because, well, it's just going to hurt their feelings more. What do you think your parents could have done or said? Because as a dad, my goal is for my girls to tell me everything, even the things that I'm uncomfortable with. If they tell me, I try to just be like, okay, sure. Yeah, that's all right. That's normal. So what could your parents have done, if anything, to make it to where you would have felt more comfortable sharing your struggles with them during this time?
I'm so fortunate to have, two amazing parents who are literally my best friends. And I wish I would have told them sooner because I don't know, I felt like I was doing something wrong on my end. That's why I didn't want to tell them. And really, like Matt, like you said, like you want to have those honest conversations with your kids. Like I tell my parents everything. And sometimes I tell them way too much. At 25, I'm like, hey guys, like guess what happened? And they're like, oh my gosh, like Max, stop. But really just they couldn't have done anything differently. They once they figured out what was going on, they're like, okay, can we intervene? Can we go talk to their parents? I was like, no, that might make it worse. But really just, telling your kid that everything's going to be okay and being an open ear and really allowing them to be honest, even though, sometimes, and I'm not a parent yet, but one day I want to have those honest relationships and conversation with my kid because they need you
Yeah.
desperately. And if someone doesn't have a parent, a guardian or someone, you need to tell them because one of my biggest regrets was not telling them sooner.
Michaela, I want to get to exactly what you're doing now. So tell us about the Blatantly Honest, and you're an author of books. What are you doing now to try to help kids who are in the similar situation that you were?
We're doing a lot of things in the Central Florida community. So the Blatantly Honest Foundation, it's a 501c3. We're really kind of here to I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to bullying. Unfortunately, that will always be there. But, the cool thing about the foundation is since I am young, I'm 25, right? I can go and speak to these kids and kind of talk to them like their big sister would. And it's not like mom or dad are talking at you. It's like, okay, hey, let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about bullying. Let's talk about body image in a way that I'm able to get through to them, but also like encourage them to go and, seek therapy or talk to their parents or teachers. So really, I spend a lot of time in schools. I have a podcast series where I interview like different celebrities and really talk about their own stories because ultimately I want to help encourage a conversation and let them know that they're not alone. Because I think the hardest part of dealing with these things is feeling like, the world's against me. And truthfully, it's not. And a lot of other people experience these things. So we have that. We have coloring books, my regular book, Blatantly Honest, just trying to provide resources in a way that's a little bit different and geared toward like, your big sister's talking at you and with you.
You are wise beyond your years. Check her out, Blatantly Honest. She is the founder, and she is just so wise for a 25-year-old. Thank you for joining us on Florida's Fourth Estate.
And thank you for watching Florida's Fourth Estate. You can download it from wherever you listen to podcasts or watch anytime on News 6 Plus.